Here goes the clap. We don't. You got the clap? All right. Hey, welcome to the Fireside Tattoo Podcast, the official podcast of the Fireside Tattoo Network. You turning me down? Am I too loud for you? Or was I peaking? Yeah, we don't need that. We're here. We're winding down. Banners are folding up left and right. Lights are being turned off here at the Evergreen Tattoo Invitational in Eugene, Oregon. And I got Andy Chambers here. I didn't know that you and Tommy even knew each other, but I've been following your work for a long time. You changed the spelling of your name, didn't you?
Yeah, it was kind of a joke thing. When I was getting tattooed, Jeff was fucking with me about my Instagram name.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And when I introduce myself to somebody, I'm just like, hey, I'm Andy. And that's as far as it gets. And, you don't realize who you're talking to until an hour later. And you're like, oh, you're this Instagram person.
Yeah.
So.
I can't tell you how many times I've made the mistake of sometimes I don't know the person that we're podcasting with, and we'll do a whole episode, and I only know their Instagram name. I don't realize that I know them from Instagram. They're like, hey, my name's it happened with Edgar Marquez. He's E Diablo. I did a whole episode with him, and it wasn't until I was like, hey, for people who want to keep up with you, what's your Instagram? He's like, E Diablo, and I'm like, shit, man, the whole line of questioning would have been different. I know your work. I've been following you forever. So
damn.
Yeah, it sucks, but that's just my lack of research, I guess. But anyways, I have been following you for a long time. You we were just sitting here talking with Jesse Smith a minute ago about we were talking about Tim Bejon and about a lot of the really cool. Tim wasn't doing any new school type of work at all, but that real using color and value to get that real atmospheric effect. And you were one of the early people that I noticed, even before I noticed like Timmy B or Victor Chill doing that. I noticed you doing it where like a snake would be coming out and it would like drop to blues as he got back, and then the lines would fall into the background or whatever. And I was like, oh, what a super cool trick.
I think I got it mostly from being at Studio Evolve for however long with Gabriel and Tanane.
Okay.
But I mean Well, I guess it did happen before that, but that definitely, I noticed that in their work all the time when I was first coming over there.
Yeah.
So,
who is that? Gabriel who?
Gabriel Cece and Tanane Whitfield.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I worked at Studio Evolve with them for about 7 years or something like that.
Got you. Where is that? What town is that in?
Virginia Beach.
Okay.
Which is where our place is too. It's also where Tommy is.
Yeah.
Tommy's awesome. He's been letting me hang out for a while we're opening the new spot, so that's good.
What are you opening?
A friend of mine and myself were opening just a small little private studio. It's like 800 square foot.
Oh, just the two of you?
Yep. We're going to call it Quill and Talon.
Oh, I like that. Quill and Talon.
So
you're from the Virginia Beach area originally or no?
North Carolina, right on the Virginia border.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I was really close to all those tattooers in the area, but but at the same time I wasn't, because Carolina is just a very different place.
Yeah. So what will this be your first private studio, first place you've owned?
Yeah, first place I've owned. Hopefully it works out. We'll keep that rolling.
Is the goal to keep it a private studio, or are you going to try to? Okay, so
you're
not looking to add artists or anything?
No.
Yeah.
That just seems like adding problems.
Yeah.
Usually, doing this, I'm hoping that it will give myself and Val, my partner in crime, more time to travel to other people's shops. Not conventions as much, but I want to go to other shops. I want to be affected by people. I want influence from all over the place, and instead of just because I'm in a private studio doesn't mean I can't have influence from other tattooers.
Yeah.
If I was in a regular shop, I'm only being influenced by the same assholes that I'm around every day. So
yeah. And that is one. Well, I mean, both of those are an issue. That is the big trouble. I've been in. I came from a shop that it was a smaller shop, 5 or 6 tattooers, but for the last 3.5 years, I've been in a private studio that's only me, and 90% of it I really love. But if I weren't coming and doing this and talking to people like you and flipping through portfolios, I think it would be the most stagnant experience.
I imagine it. Yeah. Be pretty boring.
Yeah. And there's a lot to be said for it, because I control the hours, I control the music that's playing, I control every element of it. So a lot of it is really nice, but definitely the lack of like inspiration, the lack of any type of like competitive interaction, any healthy competition, anything like that. There's just not any. So, what? Like I said, I've followed your work, but I don't know much about your background. What was your drawing background before tattooing?
I just drew a lot.
Yeah, no formal education.
No, no. I helped teach art via teleconference at the North Carolina School of Science and Math in Durham
Oh, okay.
when I was in high school.
Yeah.
But other than that, nothing. I just always liked to draw, and I had a biker offer me an apprenticeship when I was in high school.
Yeah.
He said, if you graduate, come to the shop, and I went to I was at the shop all the time anyway, and I went in there, started my apprenticeship the week after I graduated high school, and it's the only job I've ever really had other than roofing when I was in school.
Yeah, that's a way worse job than tattooing.
Yeah, that sucked. But I feel really fortunate that I've done really nothing but tattoos since I was 20.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah. So what year was that? How long have you
so
been tattooing?
15 years.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Stylistically, I mean, you've got a really you work in a new schoolish kind of style, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know what you call it.
I mean, I would illustrative for sure.
Right.
But definitely you have your own kind of mark making. A lot of a lot of the creatures and things that you draw, I can tell them apart from other people that draw similar types of creatures for sure.
Cool.
So where do you any that just came from? What were your influences like?
Well, I used to do a lot of photo reproduction and
Okay.
anything that came in the shop because I was the only person there wanting to tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And once I moved up to Virginia, I kind of just didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I felt like I tattooed every Google reference there was.
Yeah.
And I just, from that point on, I was like, I'm just going to draw everything. Even if I'm looking at a reference and I pretty much draw what I look at, then I'm still going to draw it no matter what.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to Instagram, and I'm not a social media person,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't post very often. But once I got introduced to Instagram, and you're seeing all your favorite artists all the time, and you're not having to go to the nearest bookstore to look for a magazine so you can finally see some dope tattoos from somebody,
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what made me want to do it more, because so many people now are just really good
Yeah.
for no reason at all. They're just right out the womb, really fucking awesome tattooer.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've been tattooing 2 years and they're crushing it.
Right.
So you have to do something to stand out, to be recognized or whatever. So I just try to do things a little bit different. I'm not trying to, reinvent the wheel or anything, but
Yeah.
I like small, subtle differences to try to make my stuff stand out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's effective, and I guess I guess you said you studied some realism. You've done some life drawing and stuff like that
Yeah,
in your life.
done a
So so that explains a little more, because it seems to me that you've got a really great eye for a solid understanding of color theory, and then value within the hierarchy. Like your value relationships, I think, seem really strong. You do a good job of like establishing a clear light source, even though the stuff is like not stylized. It's still very believable. It looks like it could
Right.
exist.
That's the way I like to put it, believable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's something that I think a lot of times when people don't have a formal education, it's one of those things that they struggle with, because they'll look at something like what you're doing, what Jesse might be doing, and try to steal the tricks,
Right.
but without understanding the underlying principles very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's that life drawing. It's just the study that you put in life and in drawing realism that helps you to figure that out.
I think that was a big part of it. The other part of it was somebody explained color theory to me in a way that hadn't been explained to me before, and that kind of changed everything. And I ate a lot of mushrooms one night and watched Tron, and, and then I started trying to create the look of atmosphere.
Huh. Okay.
Because it's, when you see all those buildings in the movie, it's just big, dark structures bathed in atmospheric light. Like all the light is hitting the fog, and the fog makes everything kind of disappear as it goes behind it. So I related to it because I was seeing it in other people's tattoos,
And then you recognized it in the movie, and that helps
Yeah.
you to apply it. You think?
Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting.
And then the
Yeah.
color stuff was just somebody explained to me that complementary color isn't complementary just because it looks nice next to it. It like registers to your eye as being a shadow.
Hmm.
So then I was like, oh man, yeah, that makes total sense. You have a yellow light, then your shadows are purple-ish
Yeah.
of some kind.
Yeah.
So that everything I do is just based off of that really simple idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great way to look at it. And I think it's always better to find a few simple ideas that work like that, like mixing complementaries to mute a color instead
Yeah,
of going
to make a nice gray or to
Right.
dull something down as it goes behind something else
Yeah.
is a great way to do it.
Yeah.
And there's some, you can use it in so many ways. You can use it as a light effect. You could use it as just a way to make your foreground stand out from your background.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that's,
Yeah.
it was really useful.
And then I think you also do a good job with using line to complement that too, because you use a lot of line work or a lot of strong contrast in your foreground, and then that stuff, it kind of dissipates and falls out as those, especially when you get to a point where like maybe a foreground object is starting to fall behind a background object, those lines just fall out and those values kind of help make that transition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like when lines taper and get thicker and then thinner and then fade away or turn
Yeah.
into a color line or whatever, If I like to be able to look at my stencil and understand the things that are going to stick out, without
Yeah.
having any values,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I can see it in the lines. So then I feel like I'm just more on track with whatever I'm trying to portray.
Do you have that pretty well planned out in your stencil? I've seen some of your sketches as well, and you do you're drawing a lot. Or I don't know if I've seen them recently, but I used to see you were drawing a lot in colored pencil, and so you were doing
Mm-hmm.
value studies on the front end a lot, anyways. Or do you?
I'm basically just marking where the dark spots are.
Mhm.
I kind of base it off of, I'm going to put a bunch of darks here, and that kind of leads me to everything else. That kind of putting the darks in it leads me to where the highlight is. So
Yeah.
it helps me cut out the general shapes of everything because I want things to be apparent. I don't want them to be hidden or you have to like really look at it like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've done plenty of those tattoos over the years.
Yeah.
I don't want to do shit like that anymore.
Right. Well, as far as reference that you're using these days, I mean, I think you could probably draw snakes and things pretty well just right out of your head, right? Do you still use a lot of visual reference and that you're stylizing from, or do you draw from a bank of knowledge at this point?
I like
More?
to have the image, much like concept art, inspired by something way different.
Okay.
So like I might draw a dragon, but I'm gonna base it off of the look of a rat
Huh. Okay.
or a viper, or like
Yeah.
a specific something. Or I started another dragon the other day, and I just went to the zoo with my daughter, so I got some cool shots of a Komodo and like how the legs move and stuff. And
Yeah.
that's my influence for that dragon.
Okay. So you're using things that are possibly similar to a dragon, and then
Mhm.
just trying to add the elements that make it a dragon, basically. Yeah.
And then find ways to stylize it, put a different color in it just to make it more appealing to me.
Mhm.
I try to recognize what people latch onto or what they complement, and then figure out different ways to utilize those things or, keep people interested in it.
Yeah.
I like all styles of tattooing, so
Mhm.
I kind of like to incorporate little things from other styles that I feel qualities from other
Yeah.
styles of tattooing.
Yeah, yeah. Before I forget it, it's a little bit off topic, but you were talking about not being an Instagram person. One thing I've noticed, I flipped through just to refresh myself before we started a few minutes ago. You've transitioned to you don't post a lot of photos. You post all videos now, huh?
Yeah, I like the videos. I feel like, especially with larger scale stuff, it's harder for me to get a nice shot, especially being in between a bunch of different shops
Mhm.
and stuff like that until we can get the new spot done.
Yeah.
So I feel like a video just lets you see the tattoo a little better.
Yeah.
It's more true to the values of the color and stuff.
Mhm.
Nobody can really say I edited it or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just they're more appealing to me.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I think that that was one of my first thoughts was when I saw so many videos. I was thinking that does make it a lot harder for people to be like, oh, he's pushing he's saturating it or desaturating this or adding whites or whatever. It's like, no, it's a video.
It's
just
just a
with my
video.
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even when I just take the picture with my phone and I post it, and I haven't had a portfolio in years.
Oh, really?
Studio Evolve was so big. By the time I left, there was 18 tattooers there.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, there's really no point. No one wants to look through that many portfolios.
Yeah.
So I just took mine down and just haven't had one.
How are you, or do you market yourself for conventions at all, or do you try to just go places where you'll already have a clientele?
I do whatever places I get invited to, whether I get invited by the promoter or another tattooer.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the conventions that I do.
Yeah.
And I usually I don't advertise for it because I've already filled the spots somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how it happens. It just happens. I'd never been to Hawaii. I booked it. I booked all 3 days, 3 months in advance, and because my wife went to school with somebody in Hawaii.
Okay. Just by putting posts out, just by putting something out on Instagram. Hey, I'll be tattooing in Hawaii.
No, I didn't. I didn't even post it.
Oh, sorry, not Hawaii, but if wherever you end up, it's basically you're just putting stuff out.
I only posted that I was coming here because I couldn't find the contact for a certain person. This guy Travis that lives out here that I tattoo. I was like, man, I really need to get a hold of Travis. I can't find his contact. So I made the post like a bat signal.
Right.
And sure enough, he texted me in like 5 minutes. So that was the only reason why I made the post.
What's
it just seems to work out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
I don't question it. I show up. I do my tattoos. Normally, I don't bring a portfolio.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like maybe some people might find that kind of shitty.
Well, I mean, if the goal is to tattoo, and if you're tattooing anyway, then what's the point? And it seems like most of the time, by the time you build a book and put a portfolio out, and you take it to 2 or 3 shows, you probably don't want to show half the work that's in it anyways. And you're like, oh, I've done 6 new tattoos that are way cooler than those. So
like
just go.
I really want to show somebody.
Yeah, like just close that book and go look at my Instagram. You'll find better work. I don't think there's really anything wrong with that. What's your timeline on the shop, on the new shop?
We're hoping to have it done in the next 3, maybe 4 weeks.
Oh, okay.
We just finally got the paperwork back from the DPOR, which is the people who regulate stuff in Virginia.
What is it like in Virginia as far as licensing and
it's kind of a pain in the ass because you have to deal with the DPOR, but I mean, other than them being slow, it's not bad. I mean, at least they test the person. The test might be stupid, but at least they make it a little bit more difficult for you to get a tattooer license. Like, if you haven't had one, then you have to have 1,600 hours apprenticeship documentation and like 100 tattoos.
Oh, okay.
But where I started in North Carolina, you just need $500 for the health department.
Right.
And you're like, this is where I tattoo, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, whatever.
Right. So do you have to deal with inspections annually, quarterly, or anything? In Virginia, you do. Yeah, we do in Tennessee as well. Although I was kind of jumping through hoops to open a private studio because our health department wants to surprise inspect. They want to just walk in and like check you out. And with it just being me and no front desk, that's impossible. The place is locked, or I'm only there if I'm tattooing. And so I jumped through all these hoops to make that happen and meet with the head of our health department. And they give me the clearance. And it helped that I was like, hey, I run a tattoo education network. So most of the time when I'm tattooing, there's a camera and we're like solving problems. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's cool. Not a single inspection. 3.5 years. They haven't knocked on my door once. It's like, why did I jump through all these hoops? You're not going to show up anyways.
Well, maybe they just wanted to see that you would put the effort in.
Yeah, maybe so. So where's your next stop from here?
St. Louis.
Okay. Tattoo.
Yep.
I'll see you there.
And then I'm going to get tattooed a little bit, and then I'm going.
Who's tattooing you?
To Hawaii, probably.
Okay.
Gog.
Yeah.
Gogway.
Yeah. What's that experience been like with Jeff? Last year we went down to Grants Pass and did an episode with him and spent a little time at the shop. Super cool shop. Yeah. Really interesting town. I didn't know what to make of it. I thought it was like a little kind of a Mayberry, like a North Carolina kind of town, but Jeff's
so you see the tweakers.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different spot, huh?
Yeah. It's definitely different.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I mean, I stay in a little hotel right there on the same street. So I walk to breakfast, and then I walk to the shop, and I eat like the same meal every time at the same little restaurant.
Yeah.
So I
So you
dig it.
just have
It's cool.
Yeah. How long do you usually sit with him?
I just sit all day, whatever he'll
Whatever he'll do. Yeah.
I think this last time he just busted out an extra hour to line out a bunch of stuff down here, and so that was cool.
Yeah. How long have you been working on it with him?
Too long, really. Just it's been my fault, and getting in with his counter staff and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
And then the last few years, I helped somebody start a tattoo shop, and now I'm trying to start one myself.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's taken some time or whatever. But, yeah, about 9 years, I think, total.
Oh, wow.
But there's been like a year or two where I didn't get tattooed, and but I'm trying to be more diligent about it now.
Yeah,
and get it all knocked out.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of evolution in his work in that period of time.
Yeah,
huh?
it's been really awesome.
Yeah.
I was at my first appointment with him. I was going to get a portrait of my grandfather, and
oh wow, yeah.
And I was reading the Tattoo Artist magazine that him and Shige were in, and it said they didn't want to do any more portraits.
Oh.
and he liked the photo, so he did it anyway. And then right after that, he went to Japan.
Yeah.
And then like he started being affected by Shige and Ori, and I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's been really cool to see the transition, and I'm really stoked about doing the whole front side.
Yeah, and that you haven't started that yet?
No, he did. Yeah. So it's this wrist to the opposite ankle down the back side. So now we still got from the knees up and this arm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah, I bet. Well, man, I know you're probably ready to pack up and go, but I appreciate you taking a few minutes to sit down with me, and I'll definitely we'll see you at Tattoo the Lou because we're gonna be there. Did you do it last year?
Yeah.
Okay, this will be my first year.
It was cool, man. It was a really cool environment. It was probably the first time that I've been at a tattoo convention, and I felt like I was part of the community.
Oh, really?
I'm not the biggest fan of tattoo conventions.
Really?
Yeah. I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, I bitch and complain, first world problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. They're just. I feel like, not to say anything bad about this convention or anybody else's, but I feel like promoters in general could do more to attract the general public and get them involved and keep them involved. Like everybody likes food. Get some, you know, big ass food truck corral. Try and keep people there.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a good point.
Make it more of a production, you know, for the tattooers and for the clients.
Yeah. I think that's a good suggestion. I mean, good. Let people can come through, get tattooed, go eat, come back, hang out, whatever. I'm with you. I've never been a huge fan of tattooing at conventions, and I quit doing them for years because I never felt like I was putting out I thought there was a definite line between my convention work and my studio work, and that's why we started this show. Because I actually do. I'm not super withdrawn, so I like to kind of wander around and talk to people or whatever. And I was like, when I got away from doing shows for a while, I missed it, but I didn't miss tattooing at them at all. So this was our solution. We're like, we'll just sit down and talk to them, put it out on the internet.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
I thought about just going from now on and painting the whole time.
Yeah.
So I can hang out.
Yeah.
Because tattooing, I can't pay attention to anybody.
Right.
Like you want to say hi to your homies, and you're like, whatever, I got a fucking tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna be like turning the lights off pretty soon. That's one of the things that I hated about it. Like I lose track of time so bad, and inevitably I look up and someone's standing over me like, "How much longer are you gonna be?" Like, "Oh, are we closed?" Sorry.
Not even close to being done.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, man, thanks. It was great meeting you. I appreciate you taking the time. We'll have all of Andy's, if in case you don't know him already, we'll have all of his.
No one knows.
No one knows. We'll have all of his contact info down there. And what I'll try to do is by the time this airs, if you're 3 or 4 weeks out, this will probably be a couple of months before it comes out. So hopefully you have a new studio by then.
Cool.
And maybe we can drop in the links to that as well. And,
awesome.
And so people can check it out. So
awesome.
Cool, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for supporting what we do. Thank you to Evergreen for having us. We'll see you next time.
Woo.
Cool, man. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks again for watching. If you haven't already, we ask that you would subscribe to our channel so you can stay up to date with new episodes. Also, if you've gotten any value out of our show at all, we would be honored if you would buy us a beer at our Patreon link. And finally, if you'd like to visit our website and sign up for our newsletter, you can find out where we are going, if we're going to be in a town near you, maybe tatting at a convention or something like that. And while you're there, you can pick up some Fireside merchandise like a new t-shirt or a hoodie or a coffee mug. Thanks again.